When you enter the buy-to-let investment market for the first time, it can be a bit of a minefield. Lots of information out there from lots of different sources, some of it conflicting, some of it confusing. Let's look at the buy-to-let model first of all. Well, it's simple. You acquire a property, an asset, you put it on the rental market for a period of time. At the end of the period of time, you sell the property and hopefully realise the capital appreciation. Well, the first thing to understand is during the period of the buy-to-let process, the property should be treated as a business right from the outset, right from the moment you're looking at acquiring the property. As with any business, you have market research to think about, you have incoming and outgoing costs. Let's look at number one, the market research. Well, it sounds simple, doesn't it? But often mistakes can be made here by assuming that tenants want certain kind of things. Lots of investors contact us from time to time, convinced that the only thing they should buy is a flat right on the edge of the city centre because tenants don't drive, do they? Well, the first thing to do is don't make assumptions about what your tenant wants. Tenants, when they look for a rental property, actually look for exactly the same as people who are buying a property. A property within their budget, in an area that suits them, in clean, tidy condition. Secondly, let's look at income. Well, the only income that's coming into this business is going to be the rent paid by the tenant. So lesson number two is make sure you get an accurate rent valuation before you take the plunge and buy a property. Remember, this is the income. Inaccurate valuations are rife. There are lots of letting agents out there that have just started up, inexperienced. There are lots of estate agents that have turned to letting because the sales market is so depressed and they're looking at other revenue streams. Often these people are inexperienced. At Brookdale, we manage hundreds and hundreds of properties here in Peterborough, and we only deal with letting. Our experience in the letting industry now spans 4 decades, and if you contact us to say I'm looking at this particular property, it's likely we already manage one in the area, so we can give you facts and figures based on our history. Let's look at the expenditure the property will incur. Well, obviously you've got the buying fees, you've got the mortgage, insurance, maintenance, and letting agent fees. There's not a lot we can do about most of those things or help you with, but in terms of maintenance, let's look closely at this because this can be overlooked. Always remember that every property will incur some kind of maintenance cost. Generally, the rule is the older the property, the more likely you're going to have to spend money on problems, perhaps with gas central heating, fences, and so on and so forth. Buying a new build is a good option because these invariably come with some kind of warranty. Because they're new, the fixtures are in good order, they're unlikely to fail, and if they do, of course, you've got the warranty from the builder to fall back on. Now, there's a hidden cost during the period that the property's on the buy-to-let market that new landlords quite understandably and easily overlook, and that's called the void period. The void period, of course, means periods of time where the property is not tenanted, therefore it is generating no income. Now, this must be factored into the buy-to-let model. It can be overlooked. There's going to be a period of void before the property is first occupied after you purchase it, and there's always going to be a void period between tenancies. Now, because this is the most fluid expenditure that you've got, this is where our buy-to-let advice service can help you maximise your return. I'll give you an example. If you buy a property which is based on your assumption of what tenants want, you've limited your market. Therefore, when you put the property on the market and when it comes around for relet in the future, you're waiting for a specific tenant. If you have to wait a while, you can increase your void period. If you take the wrong advice about rent valuation and a letting agent tells you a property, for example, will let for £600 when really it should be £550, tenants will not pay over the odds for a property. The property will just sit on the market empty, not generating any income, until eventually you'll probably call the letting agent and say, well, look, let's reduce the rent. Well, that could incur 1 month, 2 month void. To put this into practice, let's generate an example. You buy a property for £110,000. This is the best case scenario. You speak to a letting agent that has a great deal of experience. You get an accurate rent valuation. That's $550 a month. That's a return on the overall investment of 5%. Probably better than any bank can give you. That's what makes the buy-to-let model so attractive. Property goes on the market, small void period, the property's tenanted. it's a good tenant that lives there, so on month 10, when they serve notice, the letting agent starts showing prospective tenants around the property, and because the property's lived in clean and tidy, a deposit's put down, so there's a minimum void period. And so it goes on. Now let's look at the worst case scenario. You buy a property worth £410,000, you're told it will let for £600, it's not in particularly good condition, but the person that sells you the property says, don't worry, it will rent. So, sale completes, the property now becomes a business, and every day costs you money. It goes on the let market at £50 over budget, and nothing happens. Tenants will not pay above market rent. The few that do come round say, well, you know, if it needs a new kitchen, it needs new decoration, so on and so forth. Therefore, all of a sudden, you can have 2 or 3 months void period and the additional cost of maintenance, none of which was budgeted for at the outset of the project. Let's say then you use a letting agent that doesn't work the way we do. We only house working tenants over the age of 21, and every local applicant is subject to a home inspection. We're not just bothered about the finances, can they afford the rent? We want to know that tenants will look after the property and present it how we want them to. So, you've got a tenant in the property that's abiding by tenancy law, but they're living in a complete mess. The property's dirty and untidy. On month 10, they serve notice, and prospective tenants start looking round. No one will put a deposit on a property that's in a mess on a promise that it will be cleaned up by the time the tenant moves out. Therefore, you can incur another month or two's void. When you add this all together, the actual return on the first year investment drops from 5% to 3.5%. That's a massive difference. It's £2,500–3,000. Buy-to-let is an incredibly complex issue, and the only way you can make it work is by taking advice from a letting agent that's been in the business for so many years. We're a team of property professionals sharing just under 200 years experience in the business, and we've got nothing to gain from our free buy-to-let advice service other than, of course, managing your property when you eventually purchase it. The way it works is very simple. Just contact us, we'll pop you on our database. We'll let you know if we see properties that we think may be of interest to you that would make a good investment. And remember, because we don't sell properties, our advice is based on fact and it's totally unbiased. From that point on, you can give us a call at any time and say, oh, I've seen this property, what do you think? And we'll give you an accurate rental valuation and a kind of prognosis on how quickly we think it will let. To take advantage, give us a call on 01733 327788 or just send an inquiry via our website.